Hi friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. I'm so grateful to have you here with me. I'm going to be creating another Valentine's Day card with the amazing Love collection from This Calls for Confetti. In case you missed my video a couple weeks ago, I'll put a little card here in the top corner, but I created a full panel shaker card and I segmented different areas of the Chatty A2 cover plate die to create the shaker card. And this time we're going to use those little speech bubble extra pieces I had from the card to create another full panel shaker card, this time using the A2 full front shaker acetate pockets. So I have all of my supplies, so I will link again that video so you can see how I added the ink to my pink cardstock and created my cute little speech bubbles, but we are going to assemble them on the inside of my shaker this time. So I have a negative piece where all of those speech bubbles are located within the A2 cover plate, and I'm going to use that as a guide to glue all of those speech bubbles down. So I'm going to start with making my background. I'm trimming this piece of pattern paper from the Love 6x6 paper pad. I love the little swirlies on the paper. It's so cute. And I'm going to use the negative piece or the cutout A2 cover plate out of this thin white cardstock to help me with placing all of those speech bubbles in with liquid adhesive. So I'm just going to grab one bubble at a time and grab my liquid glue to add the adhesive on the back side of the bubble, and then I will puzzle piece it into the white cardstock, making sure not to get any glue on that white cardstock because then it will be, stuck to my pink background. And I want my pink background to show up around my speech bubbles. So I went ahead and got them all onto my background, and I went ahead showed you the last little bubble there in the middle. I love that little tiny little speech bubble. And I'm going to carefully pull up that white piece of cardstock, making sure not to pull off any of the speech bubbles with it. So very gentle process, but I just love the end results that you get with this A2 cover plate die. I'll go ahead and save that for a future project as well. Now the full front shaker card panel comes with like a protective sheet on the acetate. So I always have trouble getting these off, but I just grab my little tool here, the little pokey side, and I just keep kind of scratching at it on a place where it won't show on the front of my card, so on the little side tabs, until I can get it peeling, and then I just peel it off. I'm going to reinforce all 4 of these score lines for this panel, so that way it will be easier when I assemble my shaker card together. I've already started, that process of making sure all 4 of these little flaps will fold behind the back of my panel. Now I did trim my background to be A2 in size, 4¼ by 5½, but I had trouble getting it to lay flat when I put it on the inside of this acetate panel. I think it was just a little bit larger than A2 size, so it was kind of bowing and not laying flat. So I'm going to trim off a teensy tiny little sliver off all 4 sides of my background. I'm not going to show you all 4, but I just trimmed it enough to make sure that when I put it inside of my panel shaker acetate, that it fits in there nicely. There's no room for any of my little shaker bits to fall out, and it won't bow, like it won't cause a bend or a crease. So now let's figure out which of these shaker elements I want to use. I love, of course, the Love Polymer Clay Mix. I'm going to use that. And I thought that the blush Opaque Iridescent Confetti Mix just matched the colors and vibe of the card. So I started with just placing a bunch of the blush confetti pieces in a tray, and then I added my Love Polymer Clay Mix, but I am going to pull out all of the little tiny little spheres, little pink and white spheres, to save them for a future project because this is a flat panel shaker and I didn't want to have the larger spheres in there rolling around and causing issues with the shaker. Now I'm already going to have some elements get stuck here and there because of the way I designed my background, but that's what I was going for. I wanted my shaker bits to kind of get stuck in between the speech bubbles so it looks like the confetti is really full inside of the shaker card. So I added my background to my full front shaker panel acetate, and I'm going to peel off the release paper for 3 of the sides and really press those into place on the back side of my panel. Before I close up that fourth one, I'm going to pour my shaker mix to the inside of my panel, and I'm going to try and shake it so that way it's as flat as possible. They're not all like bunched up at the bottom. It's a little more evenly spaced out so I can get my panel to be as snug as possible without it being too taut that nothing will move, but also not too loose that everything just kind of sits on the bottom. And you can see I'm already starting to get some of those little clay bits stuck in between the speech bubbles. But again, that's what I was going for. If that's not what you're going for, you could add another piece of acetate to kind of sandwich in all those confetti bits between two pieces of acetate, and there won't be anything getting stuck onto your background. You could also die cut the panel, the pattern paper panel, and then paper piece the speech bubbles inside the back panel, and that will also create a more flat background and your shaker bits won't get stuck or caught. So now I'm going to add some super sturdy adhesive to the back of my shaker panel, and I'm going to add it to an A2 card base. This is a top folding card base out of some thicker Nina white cardstock. And I line it up to the fold of the card to make sure that if for some reason I didn't cut my card base, well, or maybe I didn't put my panel on super straight, I can trim the card base without it affecting the front panel of the card. And this is so cute even on its own, but of course we need to add a sentiment. So I don't have the fanciest printer ever. In fact, running cardstock through my printer can sometimes cause some issues. So I went ahead and just printed out these adorable digital sentiment stamps from This Calls for Confetti. You get it along with your Chatty A2 cover plate die when you order it. So I'm just going to print it out, or I did print it out on regular printer paper, and I'm going to line up the A2 plate on so it matches the rectangle of the printout, and I ran it through my die cut machine. And I'm going to be extra gentle pulling everything off because this is a thin printer paper. But I have all of the sentiments cut out perfectly. I just love it. It's so cute. I love that little heart on that little tiny speech bubble, but I'm going to end up going with the Be Mine, all in like lowercase letters. I liked the font. I liked how thin it was and how simple it looked, and I just thought it would be perfect on a very busy background, just a really clean sentiment. So because I have a thinner printer paper as my sentiment, I'm going to use a cutout piece of a thicker white cardstock and add adhesive to it so that way I can attach the thinner piece of paper to that thicker piece of cardstock and not worry about it, being too thin that it ends up getting torn or damaged in any way. Adhering it to a thicker piece of cardstock will just make it, sturdier and more durable. So if you don't have a fancy printer like me and you can only print on regular copy paper, this is one way you can get a better, sentiment, a sturdy sentiment while still using copy paper for your printer with these digital stamps. So after I glued them together, I added some adhesive to the back of my speech bubble, and I'm using my grid on my mat to try to get it centered and straight. I wanted it to be a little bit higher on the card. I just thought it looked aesthetically pleasing to my eye. And here is a close-up look of the shaker. I think it turned out so fun. I love that I got two card ideas from one, major design of the Chatty A2 cover plate with the Distress ink blended background. But you have to let me know which one was your favorite, the one I did first or today's card. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!